Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're completing a set, a trilogy of sorts, coming from Sinister Games. Today we're talking about Moon, a game that I have been insanely excited and hyped to cover for you, to the point where I actually reached back out to Sinister Fish saying, hey, make sure I have a prototype. I'm already excited. And not just excited to let you, the audience, know about this game coming from an awesome publisher, but also just purely excited because I wanted to play it early. I wanted to see what they were adding to this set of games that are already in my permanent collection. If you're not familiar with these oblong boxes yet, I first came into Sinister Fish Games through Villagers. This was, I believe, one of, if not their first Kickstarter project, and it immediately struck me with the art and the combination of cool card play and tableau building. It grew in the ranks for me and is now, like I said, part of my core collection. In Villagers, you're starting from a scrappy little, small town of hunters and gatherers and building up into this epic monstrosity, needing resources and requirements for every card you play down and chaining towards escalating victory points in an amazing, rewarding pattern. Then we had Streets. About 2 years or so after Villagers, I could be wrong on my timeline, but that's what it felt like to me, Streets came into the picture. And Streets takes that bustling kind of world that you've built and says, what if we moved that into the modern era? Streets is a game about meeple allocation. It's about building out these network of lines and grids that start drawing different customers all across the board so that they can, purchase the items they're looking for. It was the modern era of board games. Well, at least in this trilogy that we have here. And Streets was and is really lovely. It's got this weird pathway system that you have to balance in your mind as you build out these grids, trying to get the right meeples to move to the right location to buy the right resources from you. Your opponents are doing the exact same thing. So you might end up setting up a pathway that benefits them way more than it would have ever benefited you. And as you play the game, you start unveiling these patterns and then start crisscrossing and thinking about where it would be advantageous for your opponent to play, where you might be able to take advantage of their next move, and it turns into kind of a mean little twisty game. And now we have Moon. You see, it wasn't enough to build a village, and it wasn't enough to have a, healthy retail operation in the modern era. Now we need to go to space. Moon is going to be a drafting and tableau building game, a resource generating game set in the era of moon exploration. It was a more complicated word than my brain was telling me it would be. In Moon, you're going to be one of the very first colonies descending upon the planet's surface and building out your infrastructure. You're trying to get fame or reputation back from home, which is represented by adorable little heart pieces. And as you gain that fame over the first 100 years of space exploration, whoever at the end has the most popularity, has the most rumors, has the most conversations happening around the space village that they've built, they will be resulted or named the capital city, the capital of the moon, and of course lead to more infrastructure, more growth, and more future planning and population. I don't believe anything else is immediately planned for this trilogy. I think this is where the game is resting, although I like the system so much and I like the way they've explored these, oblong boxes in such a unique and interesting way. I'm not saying that I wouldn't advocate for something like Starfarers or Mars or whatever other iteration we can come up with. But that's not what we're talking about here. Today, we're talking about, my brain was just like, hey, do this really cool thing where you just stack them all on top of each other. And I was like, I'll do that. And then the other part of me was like, no, keep talking about the board game. Don't distract yourself with that. And then the third part of me was like, tell the camera what's going on in your mind. And that was probably the correct decision. What are we doing in Moon? What do you see laid out before us? Well, Moon is going to be played through 3 eras. You can see them spread out here. Era 1, Era 2, Era 3. And the unique thing about Moon is that it's a drafting game that combines really interesting actions and card play on your turn. Now, most drafting games can act simultaneously. It turns into kind of a solo puzzle. You generate your resources, you play your cards, you grab, take, whatever you need to do, and then we all kind of look up from our puzzle and we look around and we see where everyone else has gotten to. Moon is different. Moon requires you to play in turn order for a very particular and specific reason. On your turn, you're going to be able to take actions that will benefit you and other players. You'll be able to take specialized actions that are just unique into your hand or your tableau, and those hands and that tableau pattern will pass around the board as you play, meaning that every turn has a little twist to the way that you actually interact with the game state. It's one of the things that I find the most intriguing about this system. So let's start talking about what you're doing here. The main objective is score popularity, and popularity will be scored through a variety of means, but primarily through the cards that you build out in your tableau, through the objectives that you're trying to complete that give you in-game and end-game bonuses, immediate effects, and long-term consequences, and by gaining enough popularity in various different sectors or districts that you're trying to build up. Things like your infrastructure, your science, your food resource, the things that might be important on a space colony. And it starts simple. It starts in Era 1. In Era 1, you're going to draft up, depending on the number of players you have, a set of cards into your hand. Usually this is anywhere from 6 to 8 cards, and these will be the cards that you're going to be passing around the table and playing down into your tableau. You'll start with one very base card. If you see what I did there, you'll start with your starting card, which has just a very simple generated resource, which are the blue cards that we have here, and one simple flag. In this case, my base, the Sion base, would generate a single rover resource and give me one flag to count towards mid-game, turn or round victory points. Again, the highest popularity in the various different flag types will gain the according benefits. Now the game begins. I've of course set things up as if we're already through Era 1, but let's take a look about the cards that I've drafted. You'll have a hand of cards, and those cards will be composed of some of your base Era structure cards, and then you'll have a set of expedition cards. The first player will take a lead expedition card, which everyone will get a chance to utilize as the game rotates around the board, and then everyone else will have any number, not any number, everyone else will have one of these solo Era 1, 2, or 3 expedition cards. And these cards have immediate effects that you can take on your turn. For instance, if you park a rover, score 1 heart. We'll get into what that means in just a moment. But as long as you do accomplish or can use these cards when you have them in your hand, you can take one of their actions. So the cards I have in my tableau. I have my blue resource, which in this case I chose a toilet. You're starting off base and simple, and you need to produce some bio. So this, every round, is going to start producing me green bio resource, which is a little gross, but we've all seen the movie The Martian. I have a yellow card here, which is going to give me a pink flag, a infrastructure road flag, and both of these cards have little parking areas, if you can see the square grid, where rovers can be placed onto them. Now, these rovers are not my own rovers. These are going to be my opponent's rovers, and they provide both my opponent a benefit and me a benefit. You see, we're still a space colony. We still need to trade amongst each other, and so these areas are locations where my opponents, on their turn, could go park a single rover. Or remember that card that gave them a heart for doing so? Well, that's not the only benefit they'll get. They'll also get whatever resource that rover is adjacent to. And each location only has room for one rover. Another reason why you have to play in turn order, because utilizing other people's infrastructure to gain the resources you need or the flags you need to build other cards is a core part of the strategy here. Now, the puzzle, though, is whoever has the most rovers breaks ties when it comes to victory points scored at the end of each one of these era cards for the different resources you have. Because if people are coming to you for food, well, that's fine. That means you have the best food production. That means you're the most popular. That means you're the most talked about, which is, at the end of the day, what you're looking to collect. So there's a consequence, a benefit, a push and pull. If everyone uses one person's rover locations, that person will probably end up winning. But if just I use their rover location, and I make sure I tell Wes not to touch it with a 10-foot pole, well, I think I could justify that. I really do. My other card here is going to be a printer card. Now, this is just a pink card, and this one's specifically named printer, but you'll see the icon down here titled flip. The cool thing about this card is on my turn, I can flip this card to take the corresponding benefit or action down here. Now, these pink cards are super cool as well, because on your turn, you can flip one of them. So if you've built out an infrastructure of them, if you have some cool chaining abilities, things that maybe allow you to plant and then replace a rover, generate new resources, gain victory points, on my turn I might play a card down into my tableau, gain a resource, spend that resource to take a special action, flip this to rejuvenate that action or rejuvenate that resource, and so on and so forth. Now, I also have a gray card down here. This is going to be a powerful ongoing ability. And then I have a red card here, which is going to be a core one-time effect. A super powerful card that if you were able to continue gaining and harvesting would probably shatter the game, which is why, again, it's a one-time ability. Now, we also have objectives that we're going for here. We have bronze, silver, and gold for era 1, 2, and 3, and these scale in difficulty as you get higher on in the pathway, but if you aim for some specifically, you could unlock them earlier than the game necessarily intends you to. Now, you'll be racing for these different objectives, and everyone will probably end up crushing or getting a few of them. The question is, are you cutting off opponents, or are you being nice and sharing? And each one of these objectives comes not only with victory points, but also potential ongoing abilities or immediate effects, just like some of the cards you have in your tableau. So you might take this card here, have all 4 resource types in your reserve, play this down. This means you're flexible, and now you have an ongoing ability. In every production phase, one of your blue structures produces double. Well, that's incredibly powerful. I can now get multiple rovers, meaning I have more chance to move around the board and more chance to gain and produce resources. At the end of the first era, you'll end up counting up victory points when it comes to some of your tableau, and then also when it comes to the different flag rewards that you have, remembering to count rovers, depending on if you're breaking ties or not. And then you'll deal out cards for Era 2, brand new expedition cards as well with more moderate and more powerful abilities. And you'll do the same set for Era 2 and Era 3. Overall, you'll have something in the line of about 15 to 16 action phases or actions throughout the course of the game, and you'll be building your tableau the whole time. Now, what if you don't have a card that you want to place into your tableau? Well, like most drafting games, we also have a scrap ability here. You're not forced to take a card. In fact, strategically, from time to time, you might trash a card that your opponents want, just so you have the resources that benefit from it, so you can build another card down the line. You see, in the top right and kind of middle here, you're going to see that some of these locations, like the printer, require different technology, require different skills and different levels of different skills, and require different resources for you to take the best advantage of them. And really, that's the core of the game. I haven't fully explored the solo mode yet. I am looking forward to diving into it. I might even produce a video over for our Patreon community just showcasing and talking about that. But really, that's Moon. It is weird. It is quirky. It is such a unique twist on the drafting methodology, but drafting is one of my favorite mechanics in games, period. And this gives you, I would say, an accessible but yet earthy and kind of gritty approach into this tableau building world, this genre of games that we've seen come out kind of over the last bit. If you enjoy games like Furnace or It's a Wonderful World or It's a Wonderful Kingdom, there's a lot of similarities here when it comes to the feel and the flow of the game. I would say, though, with Moon, you're more incentivized to play in with a group. I find that a lot of the drafting games I play feel more like solo experiences than kind of table experiences. And Moon helps mitigate that. It mitigates that through things like the rover actions, through abilities that you take on your turn, being able to take these one-off powers, and through things like expedition cards, which never get played down, but pass from player to player, meaning that you can prep for them, you can anticipate them, and, of course, you can take advantage of them, but only when you have them in your hand. I really love what's happening here, and I was thrilled to show it off and thrilled to share it with you, and because the production quality from Sinister Fish is always top-notch, unless they ask me to ship this on, this prototype is just going to remain in my collection as part of my set until I actually get a core official copy. I mean, that's what happened with Villagers and Streets. The early copies that I had just sort of stuck around and kept hitting the table until, well, a final copy showed up at my door. So, that's the conversation. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts or inquiries about this game. And yeah, that's it. Do you have the trifecta? Have you loved, played, enjoyed, or hated any of the past titles? And what are you the most excited to see in a game like this? What else would you like to see added or taken away? And are you thinking about playing this multiplayer, or is this a solo you're going for? Either way, whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. I'll see you next time.